Kayla.
Hi, Blake Strode.
We are back.
It is season 6. We are back.
We are back in the building. We're on video.
This
upgraded.
is new. We've upgraded for season 6. For part of season 6.
For part.
I want to set
get used to
expectations
this.
right out the gate. This is something special for the people, 4 episodes, and then we're right back only in your ear.
Yes. But welcome back. It has been a while. I think we last were with the people in August. So It has been a while, but welcome back to Under the Arch. This is still a podcast where we explore the issues facing our communities and the people fighting to transform them. And we left the people kind of hanging on whether there was going to be a season 6. So
we did, and I still feel on the fence about it, but here we are because I got stopped in a store and was like, hey, are you all going to do a debate for the mayoral election in the store?
Yeah.
And it was on the other side of the November election. Everybody take a breath. We didn't have an episode about that, but a lot happened in November. And after November, there's another election. And so we're here for season 6.
Yes.
What the people want, the people get.
The people want, the people get. So
that's our job as organizers.
We are kicking off season 6.
You want to tell the people who you are on camera?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Blake. This is what I look like. Blake Strode, Executive Director of Arch City Defenders.
Yeah, and I'm Kayla Reed, co-founder and Executive Director of Action St. Louis. And let's talk about season 6.
Yeah, we are kicking off season 6 with a very special series, a candidate series focused on the upcoming municipal election in the city of St. Louis.
Yeah.
And specifically a mayoral candidate series. We'll see if it extends beyond that, but we are so excited to talk to all of the folks asking for your votes in the city of St. Louis. If you live in the city of St. Louis, then this is for you.
This is for you. And listen, we have done historically around these elections. In 2017, we did a mayoral debate at St. Louis University. We almost got shut down by the fire chief. That was very fun and exciting. And in 2021, we did a debate for the mayoral election in the city of St. Louis virtually because we were sort of in the height of the pandemic. And so this year, we started thinking about what would a debate look like in 2025. But also, those debates are 2 hours long and there are 4 candidates running for mayor. So that gives about 30 minutes per candidate if they answer our questions directly. They never do. They never do. And so we felt like instead of doing a debate structure, because there are many debates happening in our community from ward level conversations to citywide debates, we decided to sort of take a different direction. Instead of having a debate, we wanted to have deep dive conversations with the 4 candidates running to be the executive in the city of St. Louis. So we've invited all 4 candidates to an episode of Under the Arch. We are doing this on camera for the first time. We've, hired a brilliant videographer, production company, Church Productions. We're in his studio and we're going to do these episodes for the people. We've heard your concerns. We know the questions you want to ask. We're going to try our best to do it in an hour. And not let them distract you by talking about each other.
Right.
They got to answer the questions on camera.
Yes. And before we bring in our first guest, which I'm very excited about, we do have some disclaimers off the top, given what we're doing here. So the first disclaimer is simply a reminder. We are both individually and our organizations believe very strongly in democracy, in electoral justice.
Yes.
I've heard that phrase very frequently at Action St. Louis. But our organizations are also 501c3 organizations. And that means we will not be endorsing any candidates. We will not be supporting or opposing any candidates on this here platform. We will not be telling you whether their answers were good or bad or assessing them. Our goal here is to give you information so that you can make informed decisions as you go into the ballot box. So that's number 1. Number 2, to help us accomplish that, we're going to be taking the same structure for all of these interviews. And that structure is going to consist of some introductory background, some questions about their specific platforms and histories, look at some of the specific critiques that they faced. We did a segment called In the News when we did debates, so we're sort of bringing that back. And then finally, some questions on issues that are really close to our organizational work. You all know what those are. That won't be any surprise. And not only are we going to do that with every candidate, we also won't be releasing any of these until we've recorded all of these. So nobody has an unfair advantage. All the candidates have the same limited information and expectations coming into our conversation.
That's a great point. No one saw the questions before. We don't have a favorite. I know we were instructed to not look at the camera. We don't have a favorite in this race. Not a dog in the fight, except for you to vote. That's the only one. And so let's get started. He's been sitting here listening.
Yes, let's bring him in.
We would like to introduce mayoral candidate, current recorder of deeds, Michael Butler.
Woo!
Thank you.
That was an awful DJ noise. So welcome to Under the Arch.
Glad to be here.
Happy to have you. Asked you to be here before once. And what'd you say you said?
I said I didn't feel like I was good enough to be on.
Well, now you feel like you're good enough to be on and to run for mayor. So shall we?
The shade.
We're millennials. It has to exist. So let's just jump in. So like Blake said, we have a few, and you can attest you've not seen the questions.
Correct.
You do not know what we're going to ask you.
I'm scared.
But we hope you prepared.
Yes.
Okay. So for the people listening, for the people watching, who are you? Tell us about yourself.
I'm Michael Butler. I am a fan of Blake Strode and Kayla Reed. I'm someone who's been watching each of you for Blake over 2 decades, Kayla over a decade. I remember you worked for. He played tennis. I used to read about Blake in the St. Louis American every other week.
It was a simpler time. It was a simpler time.
And Kayla, of course, we met you working for Organization of Black Struggle, and you were organizing before and after the Michael Brown murder. So I just want to say it's an honor to have a conversation with you all and to see our paths over the past couple decades. It's an amazing the change that you all have made in our community and the change that you continue to try to make in our community. So I'm running for mayor because of a story that I remember back when I was a kid. And I actually got into politics because I played a baseball game at Herbert Hoover Boys and Girls Club. And I was a shortstop. And I was playing a game that I knew the other team was cheating. So I was a shortstop, and the guys coming to second base were coming up with their cleats up, and they were, that made it hard for me to get the ball over to first base. And when they were going to third base, they would be throwing dirt in the air, so I couldn't get the ground ball coming by me. And I don't like to say the name of the team that we were playing, but I will tell you the team's name rhymes with Schmatthews and Schmicky. And the Matthew Schmicky folks love to hear me say that they won that game. They won it probably by a lot. And I remember crying to my dad after that game and said, Dad, this isn't fair. You said that cheaters never win. And my dad gave me that age-old line. He always told me when I was a kid, he said, son, life isn't fair. And something broke in me that day that I wanted to make life fair for everyone. And when I was growing up on the South Side and the state streets and we didn't have enough to eat some days, my dad would say, life isn't fair. And when I was born without the bones formed correctly in my leg and I had to wear a Forrest Gump boot on my leg for the first 5 years of my life, and my brothers and sisters were running around, I couldn't keep up with them, my dad would say, life isn't fair. So I'm running for mayor because I think life should be fair for everyone in our city. I think it's not fair that one child has to walk by vacant houses in their neighborhood while another couple runs by hot properties that are increasing their property value. I think that it's not fair that one person has to live in an unsafe neighborhood and another person gets to ride their bike around their neighborhood for miles. And I don't think it's fair that one street gets snow plowed and paved and another street doesn't, gets ignored. So we've had plenty of examples where our government has not been fair to us. I don't think it's fair that someone gets locked up in jail and sometimes they don't, and their family member doesn't make it out. I think there are a lot of instances where just government services itself has not been fair over the past so many decades, and our community is begging for change, and that's why I'm running for mayor. That's who I am.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you for that. Also, 5 minutes in, we got Boys and Girls Club beef, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I attended St. James after school program in the College Hill neighborhood. I have no dog in that fight.
We are not picking sides.
We are not endorsing
that fight. No.
Youth programs or candidates in this episode.
It's really great to hear about the, those early moments in life that shape us. and it's great to hear that motivation for you. What I want to dig into the question of, you kind of gave us the why, but why do you believe that you are the most qualified? Why do you believe that your experiences make you prepared to be mayor of the city of St. Louis?
People think about college and think about qualifications. So I have a master's degree in public administration. I've experience in the state legislature, but most importantly, I've ran a city government office for the past 6 years. So I've been in City Hall for 6 years as the recorder of deeds for the city, and I've managed people very well and managed my office very well to where, one, we've increased online access for our office. We increased revenue for our office. I've increased productivity. I've done everything I can to improve the recorder of deeds office, and I want to spread that to the rest of City Hall. So I feel like I have the ability to bring people together, have the ability to lead folks, and I have the educational background and the experience to lead a city and lead thousands of employees.
Yeah. All right. So this next section, we're just going to dig in. So we did our research, as you know, and have assumed, and as the people know, we want to be prepared. And so we have questions about your agenda, your positions, that we want to go through. So let's start with the website. You have on your website 4 priorities, and we have some questions about each of those. But just to name the 4 priorities for our listeners, 1 is to reduce crime, 1 is to reduce vacant housing, number 3 is to improve our local economy, and number 4 is something you say, get back to the basics. So we're going to start with topic 1, reducing crime. So on reducing crime on your website, it says, quote, a safer St. Louis starts with comprehensive crime prevention. So tell us your plan to make St. Louis safer.
So crime prevention is something I've been working on the entire time I've been an elected official. When I was in the state legislature, I was the annoying state rep from St. Louis City who continued to talk about crime and sometimes would eulogize or mention some of the folks that would be murdered in our city on the House floor for that day. It's important to note. So I'll go into the solutions before I kind of talk about my personal story with crime. But it's I think I sponsored and worked hard to get a community prevention program called the Neighborhood Ownership Model, which partnered with the Circuit Attorney's Office and Police Department to get a substation in neighborhoods that would partner with community folks to do a unarmed neighborhood watch program to pretty much get community folks to take responsibility and or be more involved in their community to prevent crime and to engage with community members along crime, and then to have the police department support what the community wanted, not the other way around. So I would want to fund and support that program and renew that program, renew some vigor in that program as mayor. Number 2, of course, we want to attack the root causes of crime. I give the current mayor kudos for the Office of Violence Prevention and some of the investments it's made with nonprofit organizations in high crime areas. I would continue a lot of that work to go towards the root causes of crime for crime prevention. Number 3, of course, we want to have a quality police department. We've been hearing a lot about quantity in our police department. I believe it's important that we pay our officers good wages and give our officers good accountability and increase what we expect from them. We can do that when we increase their salary, when we're doing that, increasing what we expect from them. And I want to focus on quality, not quantity of officers, and then try to build quantity from that quality. Of course, we want to also, I hear from a lot of folks about enforcing our city's traffic laws, but understanding the difference between enforcing traffic laws and trying to go further than that. Things that especially you all have worked on over the past 10 years, to where a lot of municipalities and especially in the 24-1 footprint in St. Louis County went too far with that. There are people in our community that feel like we've gone back a little too far, where we have too many stop signs and too many red lights, but we don't want to never go back to where we were before. And then lastly, I want to make sure we're protecting against federal government intrusion. We knew while this race has been going on that we have since Donald Trump has been elected, that we'd have some local law enforcement combined with federal enforcement to try to deport some of our citizens and good community members. And as we talk today, some of that action is starting to happen in our city. So we need a mayor that's going to stand up to that, and not use tropes and not use that as ability to attack parts of our community. I will be a mayor that's going to welcome citizens in our community and partner with activists and protect people in our community who are here legally and who deserve to be here in our city. So being preventive against what we know is going to come down from the federal government as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you said a few things there. I want to follow up on a couple of them. One with respect to sort of policy around policing. Of course, a big part of that conversation, as you said, always comes down sort of crucially to the question of, do we need to allocate more money to policing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that has been the kind of crux of the argument around policy as relates to police departments here and across the country over the past several years. What is your view on that? So if you look at the current level of spending on policing in the city of St. Louis relative to other things, is it your view that we need to be allocating more money, less money, that we have it about right? What do you think about that?
I think we need to be allocating more money to recruit better employees into our police department. I think there are places we can cut to where we don't have to increase the budget. So if I'm clear, I think it would say have it about right when it comes to our total amount, and we need to be having less FTEs with higher salaries. We need to be improving quality. Not trying to improve the quantity of the budget or the quantity of people in the police department. Quite frankly, we have hundreds of vacancies in the police department as it is. We've had hundreds of vacancies for years, and we don't necessarily need more quantity and putting numbers on a budget that aren't never going to get filled. What we need, what I hear from people, what I hear directly from people in the community is that they don't feel like they're having enough quality, and they feel like they're not getting their money's worth. And there's an old term and it's the same thing for HR, is you get what you pay for. And quite frankly, and you can increase expectations from a police department if you can increase the quality of those police. And you can't increase the quality until we increase the competitive salaries with that. So I don't want to put more in the total budget, but I do want folks to know that I want more money to be able to attract the right kind of people. It's important to know that I want that to be public money, not private money. I want that to continue to only be within the city budget. I do want more money for community programs, for partnering with community. I want more money to go towards programs that are violence prevention, that are that are intervention programs. I want more programs that are going to put money in the pockets of young people who are at risk. We'll use the term at risk. So we can I want to put money towards programs, recreational programs, job programs that are going to give many of our young people or people that are find themselves at risk, giving them more job opportunities, give them opportunities to make money. So I do want more there. And if people feel that that's going to be in a police budget, that's not, I don't think that's the correct place.
Yeah. So connected to just like the conversation on policing right now, because, you are a former state rep. And so, know the business of Jefferson City and how much St. Louis is a focal point in the sort of conservative narrative of Jefferson City. And so once again, sort of we have a renewed conversation about state takeover of the St. Louis Metro Police Department. With people falling on all sides across party, and demographic. I'm thinking about the current mayor is fighting to keep that under local control. The Ethical Society of Police, the Black Police Union, has endorsed the state takeover. And I think in response to both this question around recruitment and the conversation about state takeover, police have received 2 raises in 2 years. This most recent one, I think, was a 7% raise. Right. Yeah, about a 7% raise. And so, this is a 2-part question. When you say improve quality, are the raises that we've had, do you want to go further than that? And then how would you navigate the political dynamics in Jefferson City around a a state takeover of the police department.
I do want to go further than the raises we have. The raises we have continue to increase the amount that those officers get, and the current raise that we're proposing right now is just a 7% raise of the beginning salary. It doesn't it for someone who's been in the department for 10 to 20 years, it goes as small as a 2% raise. So that raise is not aggressive enough for us to compete with St. Louis County or St. Charles. So we have to be higher than them in order to get the quality from them or in areas around us. So we've got to be higher than them. So yes, I do want us to go further. To that same point, I would love for the state government to help pay for that or pay for the entire thing. If the state government wants to force us when they want to force a takeover our police department, quite frankly, they should put their money where their mouth is. And if we're struggling to give a $6,000, $7,000 raise for officers, and still be below St. Louis County and St. Charles, they can easily, if they want us to have a better police department, they should be footing the bill to a $15,000 raise is about what we need for each police department employee, not just police officers, even their support employees, in order for us to recruit quality and be able to build a better police department. That's going to cost about $30 million. It's not money that we have. It's not money that the city government has. With a $42 million surplus, there are much bigger priorities that I'm sure we'll talk about next, like reducing vacant housing. So while a wish list of mine would be to have bigger raises, I fully understand that we probably, just within the city budget, not taking private funds, we can't do it ourselves. How I would work with Jefferson City to say that they should put their money where their mouth is on when it comes to raises. The other thing is equipment is a big thing that comes up a lot with the police department employees. And of course, we're not talking about military equipment. I don't believe in militarizing our police again. I want to say most of you, I hate to say we, because most of you all have worked on these issues for over a decade. But there are simple things like our police cars that are not well kept up, and there are legitimate complaints about simple equipment that our police department doesn't have access to, that the state government can help us with, that has fully within their budget surplus. If they want to force to take over our police department, they can help to pay the bills as well. I propose in my Rams funding spending bill to support about $8 million of police equipment increases. That's just mostly for cars and for not militarization of police, but for simple equipment. I think those are the biggest complaints I hear from supporters of state takeover that live in the city of St. Louis. I think those are legitimate and complaints that the city government and politics in the city government can probably get behind at some point. And I think I think when it comes to coupling that with state takeover, we want to be having them and back to Blake's question, having not increasing the budget with us and having the state government take on more of the financial burden of our police department.
We definitely want to come to the RAM settlement spending in a minute. Let me ask one other question on this, which is you sort of made a quality, not quantity argument a minute ago. And I'm curious, how would you measure quality? I mean, it's good to hear you sort of skeptical of the, keeping vacant positions on the books. This has been like a pet peeve of mine for some time, that force, the authorized force number is completely made up and it hasn't been real for years. Mm-hmm. So I can appreciate that, but how do you measure quality? Is it simply a measure of what we're paying people?
This is a great question, because how the police department measures quality is probably different how I would measure quality. Mm-hmm. And crime stats for decades have measured outputs and not outcomes. So the first thing I would measure quality, I wouldn't measure it. I would have the community measure it. And there are a few things that the community, they can get community feedback from, that I would employ our civilian oversight board to quickly, because I don't believe in a lot of long-term commissions, our civilian oversight to quickly develop what do you call it? To quickly develop a rubric that we can measure quality. What that looks like, number one, is response time is always the thing that we hear from people about, response time on calls. Number two is visibility. So how the community feels, they see visibility, not just statistics of what somebody said. And number three, of course, is, which I'm hoping we're going to talk, is the reduction of court cases against the city when it comes to police actions. I think those are three simple things that you can stem a lot of different other questions for a rubric. But I think quality for me is community quality is different than what we see crime stats at a neighborhood meeting that we get from a community officer. So I will want the Civilian Oversight Board and community leaders to help create what that quality is.
So we want to talk about the second part on your website, which is focused on reducing vacant housing. We agree that reducing vacant housing is important. There have been a few efforts to address that, like Prop NS in 2017. What other strategies would you deploy to reduce vacant housing?
So I want to use our RAMS funding, most of RAMS funding, to reduce the vacant housing. Quite frankly, that's why I think community people, when I hear that, that's the biggest eyesore in our city. They can't believe we're not already doing this. I want to put the best incentives with down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, and housing programs. Those consumer incentives, I want to prioritize them first in what I call our building upon our assets of our city. So in neighborhoods just north of Central West End, just north of Delmar to Page, Jefferson to Skinker, and then on the south side, just south of Gravois. There's a Gravois divide on the south side. Gravois, Jefferson to Cherokee Street. In the first 4 years of my mayorship, I would love there to be a Page divide, no longer a Delmar divide. On the south side, that means going down to Cherokee Street, and then between Cherokee and Bates would probably be the second iteration of that. The second thing I do is everywhere in the city, I would use RAMP funding to help offset us to reducing our LRA properties. These are publicly owned vacant properties down to $1 or as less or as low as we possibly can. And I want to offset our balance sheets with that with RAMS funding. So that's in the areas that are not in that focus area. We want to make sure that people can buy those properties and renovate themselves, trying to spur that housing market. It's important to know that in talking to people on their doorstep, the number one people that want to buy vacant houses in North City are people that live in North City. And they feel that there are too many barriers and not enough information so they can access those properties right next door to them, right across the street, right around the corner, for them to invest their disposable income to make their neighborhood better. I want to decrease those barriers, increase those barriers immediately. Once again, don't take a mission to do it. Don't have to ask some consultant to do it. Within 6 months, know how to reduce those barriers to getting access to that. And I think the SLDC has been doing some of that. But we can be more aggressive. And the last thing about vacant housing is that we got to understand that in a lot of those areas, our high vacancy areas, we don't have a functional housing market. And my goal is to use as much RAMS funding as possible to create a functional housing market eventually, so that the private sector will then invest in reducing that vacant housing alongside of us or before us and in the future. Because that, quite frankly, the money is going to run out at some point. But using those three and I can go deeper into which vacant lots and vacant properties and renovating and having programs to help existing citizens renovate housing. But I want to be very aggressive on the biggest eyesore in the city with reducing that vacant housing.
I do want to ask you maybe to go deeper on the third. I think I understand the points about subsidizing purchase and repair of those properties. Can you say more about what you mean by creating more of a market in the spaces?
Very helpful. There are two things. I want to turn those vacant properties into livable spaces again. So I want to try to spur. So you got to get there are three types of properties. There are vacant lots, so you can build new infill housing on those properties already. In that case, I would want to hire a contractor to through the city government to build a property between $180,000, $220,000. So affordable property, single family home that is going to be between 1,500 square feet to 2,000 square feet. So not too big, not too small. and then sell that property back at cost. And so we're creating an affordable single family housing market on those vacant lots. Mm-hmm. The second type of property we have are properties that no longer that's a home that needs to be demolished. Best way to put it. We have a demo list that has sometimes 5 houses on it from the city, sometimes 150. I want to build up that demo list using RAM's funding to pay. It costs about $15,000 to $20,000 to demo a home, demo those houses to create a vacant lot that we can build new infill housing on. Pay a contractor to do that, and then and do that immediately. And in between time, there might not be enough contractors, and between contracts with these contractors and home builders, I want to create what's known as that could be called a contractor of last resort program. In other states, they do this mostly with insurance, but I want to be able the city to build that property itself, and to have to hire its own foreman and hire its own experts to build those properties in those same parameters. So that we're building new properties that are affordable that people can move into, while coupling them with those consumer incentives that people can move into the single family housing. The last type of property have are vacant properties in these neighborhoods, in these areas, and high vacancy areas that can be renovated and don't need a brand new infill housing. Mm-hmm. The same instance, we want to be able to have a third party contractor to be able to renovate the house and sell it at cost, or our last resort contractor as a city can come in and renovate those properties. But at the end of the day, the goal is to be, and this, people don't want no more excuses. They want to see it within 3 years, to have within that square that every vacant property is available, is a new building that is a space that people can live in again, and that is sold at an affordable price that we can either rent or have someone have a family purchase immediately.
And I heard you say you want to spend Rams money on that. What do you see as the sticker price on doing what you described?
I see the sticker price at about $50 million for, and it'll be a revolving fund, a $50 million revolving fund. I see about $10 to $20 million being revolved at any given time. Mm-hmm. So the true difficulty there is how many you can do it in any given semi-year. How many contractors can you sign up? How many do you not have on the contract? How long does it take to get a contract to last resort started for you to be able to turn those property over in time, and how quickly can they be sold? I believe people want to move back in the city for the right price. I believe people want to move right north of Central West End and right north of Page for the right price and for the right marketing, and with the right marketing program. And the entrepreneur in me knows that we can make it happen.
Yeah. All right. I don't know why I keep saying all right. All right. So let's move to part 3, our key value 3, which is sort of on your homepage. It talks about, quote, getting back to the basics. And under values page, it says improving city services. And, this is not a debate, so I'm going to wax poetic a little bit and say, every candidate says this every 4 years. I want to do a better job of picking up your trash. I want to do a better job of getting the snow off your ground. Better job of making sure these streets don't have potholes. Since I was born, like as a kid of the city, coming back to the city as an adult, every person who runs for mayor runs with this pillar. So what is the obstacle to this, and how would you fix it?
I hear. I don't remember people saying this 4 years ago. Quite frankly, I don't remember that. I think
4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 16 years ago, 20 years ago, 24 years ago.
I agree. I'm going to answer your question though too, which is the more important question. Like I think I will say that when I started my campaign, I was the first one talking about these issues, and now that a snowstorm is happening, everybody's talking about basic government services. And so what is the barrier? The biggest barrier has been the amount of vacancies and our inability to hire people in the city. And I first want to say that I haven't had a vacancy in my city offices in over 4 years, because I believe in quality over quantity, and I believe in paying people what they're worth and giving them the technology they need to succeed. And I have a wait list of people who want to work in my office, because we quietly have become the place to be in City Hall, because we respect our employees. We pay them what they're worth, and there's no sticker price on a piece of technology to make your job easier that I won't pay for. Because of that, we've also increased productivity by 25%. So in my office, I've actually reduced the amount of full-time employees, like I want to do in the police department, by 4. I went from 37 FTEs when I first became recorder to now 33, and we increased productivity by 25%. So we are doing more with less, and I want to do that for the rest of city government. It's not rocket science. The other barrier is that mayors make this rocket science. They make this difficult. Like there are leaders in our government at all levels who just make it difficult. I found I'm getting more out of people by simply giving them permission to be great. A lot of times, especially in government offices, there are tasks that employees do that we do it this way because we've always done it this way. And we do it, and they do that same task for 20 hours a week when we can give them a piece of technology that helps them do it better, that they really wanted all this time, but they got told no twice for some director 3 years ago. They stopped asking. That we give them a piece of technology. Now they are able to do that task in 5 hours. And eventually we can move that. And that one employee that normally would have told us, oh, we've actually not hardly doing much anymore because we're doing this much faster. You don't have to be afraid that we're going to end your job. We can move you to something else that's similar, maybe low skilled in another department where we can use you more. So
let me ask this. Let me answer it with a follow-up question. Tell me how that works for trash pickup.
Okay, good question. For trash pickup, it number one works is we got to have a competitive salary to where people want to be a trash man, so that we are hopefully poaching some trash pickup folks from other municipalities as well, like they've done to us. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, which we have heard that we've got more trash trucks. So we got trash trucks, but we don't have people to drive them at this point. We got 9 new trash trucks about 3 months ago, but we have no new drivers. So we have nobody to drive them. So that's the first issue. Recruiting enough people, paying a big enough salary so we get 9 folks in that can drive those trash trucks. The other thing with that is that we have, in the past 5 years, implemented some more roll-up trash cans rather than dumpsters in city government. So now we have 2 types of trash trucks that we need, because apparently we had some custom trash trucks that can only use these custom dumpsters for the city of St. Louis. And now we want to transfer some of these neighborhoods to the roll-up. So now we have 2 types of trash trucks where we have to have 2 types of people being trained. So make sure we have cross-training so people can drive both trucks. We have enough people that are able to do that. And then more importantly, seeing which one is more efficient over time. I'm a dumpster guy myself. I
never heard that sentence.
I like the guy myself. I like with our alleys that we're able to have those dumpsters. And
I mean, it depends on what alley. Like my alley is nice.
Right.
People come out and work together. Now you go 8 blocks down.
So that was going to be my last point. Is that
the couch there for 7 months.
Our alleys being paved are a pediment. So another department, well, in the same department, but another division in the department of the streets department is streets paving. So some of our alleys, they're so far gone, they're so bad that our trash trucks can't get through, or they don't want to. That even our employees sometimes feel like, I'm just not going to do that one this time around. And when you have a whole bunch of snow, all of a sudden we can't pick up trash quick enough. We don't have enough employees to make it happen. That's how it works with that. Giving folks giving folks the quality and the quality of salary they need, giving the technology they need, the actual trucks they need, and giving them permission to be a little more innovative when it comes to other things like picking up trash that's alongside of the trash can, and staying on top of folks to make sure they're doing that when we have a big incident like a weather disaster like we had in the past month. Some people
they're gonna run on this snowstorm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hear you on the efficiency and the technology and autonomy for workers. One way to read what you said a moment ago is that you would correct this chronic understaffing by reducing the city workforce overall, which would enable you to raise the average pay. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am. Okay. That's true.
Okay.
And apparently there is a study going on to right size our government currently. I'd want to say I wouldn't I would study that. That's the job of the mayor. I wouldn't hire a third party consultant to do something that I can do myself. With a master's degree in public administration, someone who's run an office for the past 6 years, I do that. When I was doing this work in my office, I was like, man, I could be a consultant. I could, in a way, we're retooling this office. I could be doing a lot. You know what I'm saying? But I agree. Here's the thing about consultants are there to do things for you that you can't do yourself. If you got to pay a consultant, then you're usually paying a consultant to fill in a deficiency that's within you or your team. So so I don't have that deficiency, and I would relish in the ability to get deep within our civil service offices and to partner with those directors that I'm hiring to right size and right fit, and I would want to do that on a daily basis.
Okay. So let's go to the fourth pillar on your website, and last thing in this section of the conversation was on improving the local economy, and I think matching kind of the homepage to the values page. I think this is a RAM settlement fund conversation, if I'm understanding correctly. And you've mentioned this RAM settlement fund approach a couple of times as we've been talking. From what we took from the website was that there would be a focus on youth spending, vacancy, and essentially infrastructure, and a kind of a focus on downtown in part of that infrastructure, which sounds a lot like the basic structure of that compromise bill. I put compromise in quotes, but that bill. Is that
the Transform STL Act for those who are following the Board of Aldermen?
But 2.0.
No, so I've been publicly said several times that I think there should be some RAMS money that goes towards downtown, but not near as much as they're asking for. And quite frankly, I want the RAMS funding that I would propose to go downtown to be focused solely on housing, on good quality housing. My RAMS spending proposal focuses on increasing population. So investing in increasing population, increasing our tax base. So we're seeing or return on investment for that funding back in a tax base. So I would not be wanting to partner with the organization for their wish list. I think it's appropriate for the city government to be focused on what it usually does, which is to improve material housing, especially for renters in downtown St. Louis.
Okay, so let's talk about interest, special interest. When this compromise bill, the Transform STL 2.0 Act, was introduced, there was a press conference to announce this bill, which is a bit unusual at the point of introducing a bill, right? But this is a money pot, so maybe. It was the mayor, it was the president of the Board of Aldermen, sponsoring Alder people, and the St. Louis Business Lobby, better known as Greater St. Louis, Inc., formerly known as Civic Progress. Do you think that that's appropriate? And what role should or shouldn't lobby groups like Greater St. Louis, Inc. play in policymaking and budgetary decision in the city?
No, it's not appropriate. We as elected officials work for people that vote for us. And as far as I remember, Greater St. Louis doesn't have a vote. And I think it's far more appropriate for us as elected officials when it comes to a large pot of money like we have to include everyone as well. Every elected official and voters who have been involved in the process. There has been a community process where people who live and vote in the city have been a part of. It would have been more appropriate for them to be a part of a press conference, for folks who have given several hours of their time to give their opinion, and I'm understanding thousands of folks. It would have been nice for a press conference with those folks to come together. I think that the progress that's being made is there are some steps in the right direction as far as infrastructure and vacant housing. I'm hoping that can continue to expand, and I think that being a legislative leader makes me stand out from my other two opponents about the ability to bring people together. Yes, I think that. So I know that wouldn't have been appropriate. I would have rather had every alderman and every voter who was a part of the process be there.
Yeah. So just as a follow up, if I can ask, because our organization has been in conversations and turned people out to fill out the survey. 16,000 residents of the city filled out the survey, went through the process. And on Friday, I don't know if you watched the Board of Aldermen meeting, which would have been the 31st, because this won't air, where last Friday was real last Friday. In a matter of words, it just descended into chaos. Right. And so
I've
most
seen worse,
people,
but go ahead.
You feel what?
I've definitely seen worse in Jefferson City, but go ahead.
You've seen what? Yeah.
Yes,
well,
Your bar is high.
Yeah, your bar, or low.
Or low.
Whichever one you want to do it. But the all Democratic Board of Aldermen factioned out, right? And they're essentially, the bill is like, people have differing opinions on this. And the mayor is working behind the scenes. The president of the Board of Aldermen is working behind the scenes. They're obviously working. Candidates on the Board of Aldermen are working behind the scenes. What is your plan if you're elected to navigate that Board of Aldermen culture to get a piece of legislation passed?
Oh man, what I saw was there seemed to be the biggest thing is a lack of communication amongst the stakeholders, or and maybe to the point you're making, a misrepresentation of who the actual stakeholders are. So I think that a mayor is not a bully. A mayor is a facilitator first. And being a facilitator allows you a bully pulpit, but you have to, being a facilitator lets you know who are you facilitating? Who's the audience and who are the right stakeholders? And when powerful elected officials forget who the correct stakeholders are, they make bad decisions and they communicate to the wrong people. So I think a lot of the issues that we saw at the board can be solved with better communication. The first thing I want to do as mayor, and I've talked to other Black elected officials about this, is restore the African American caucus, and to restore the functionality of the African American caucus in the Board of Aldermen. And we don't have, our community, Black folks, are begging for a plan and cohesiveness around issues that affect Black people, especially poor Black people. Mm-hmm. And we don't have a leadership group that's doing that inside City Hall currently. And so to that point, without getting too deep into the weeds, I found that there are two types of legislators, especially Black legislators in our Board of Aldermen. There are people who are focused on process and people who focus on policy. And the people and I've been successful as the city central committee chair, as a state party chair, as a leader, as a chairman of the Missouri Democratic Caucus, by learning the difference between folks who are usually interested in ideas and who are interested in respect, process versus policy, and communicating with them in a way that satisfies their needs on issues that satisfy the community's needs. And in a lot of ways, a lot of the progressives on the Board of Aldermen, they want policy change, and they're focused on policy change. And the non-progressives are more focused on the process of things, where they're actually talked to. And you can get a lot more success and cohesiveness in the board just by sometimes talking to those folks and showing them ways that the process and the policy goal is going to improve their ward and the material difference in their citizens, which they almost always do. You gain a lot more votes and build that majority and keep that majority. And I think a lot of what we're seeing is the inability of leaders to lead and to humble themselves and focus on how do we satisfy that process and the policy at the same time.
It sounds like you're positioning yourself to be a aldermanic consultant, if depending on how things play out. No, I'm just kidding. So I think
I would not want that.
No, nobody wants that.
All right. Well, we're done grilling you on what's on your website, but we do have one question. As we teed up at the top, we used to do this thing in the debates called In the News, where we would ask people to respond to either a critique or some controversy that was in the news. In your case, what we want to ask about, and you've talked quite proudly about your record as an employer. But there have been critiques of your record as an employer, including the terminations in the Recorder of Deeds office. You were accused of union busting when you were the state head of the state party chair. How do you respond to those critiques? What do you want people to know about your approach as an employer in those various roles?
First, the union busting thing was a complete lie, and union members and union leaders, while I was state party chair, were very supportive of me. All of that happened, that the state party was sued for, happened before I became chair, and I was there to clean up. And like most Black leaders who are there to clean up, you get dirt on yourself, and people like to throw dirt on you. But I'm a proud union member. My grandfather was a Teamster. My father is a member of Communication Workers of Association. My other grandfather was a AFT Local 420 member. So I've been in a union household my entire life. So I had 100% labor voting record when I was in the legislature. So that it's just a complete lie that I'm not union friendly. Now, what is true is that I have no problem cleaning house. And when taxpayers elect you to do a job, I believe in mission over the person. And if the job calls for folks who are creating a hostile work environment or not getting the results for community, we're required to clean house to spend tax dollars correctly. So when I first got to become Recorder of Deeds, I did terminate about 25% of the office on day one and got rid of a hostile working environment by day two. And I have had, once again, an office that people are absolutely happy to work in ever since. As state party chair, we had the worst loss in the history of our state, in the history of our state as Democrats, by losing by over 17 points. I cleaned house when I got to the state house and increased salaries and hired competent quality people under the same union contract and hired more union employees. And we reduced our loss. So I would say we gained by 4 points over 2 years. And I don't, quite frankly, we haven't had that same gain since I've been there. We invested in more. We hired the first African-American openly gay executive director in the history of the state party, and paid that person more than anybody had ever made in that position, because we were finally able to hire somebody who was overly qualified. That was not a DEI hire, they were a overly qualified hire. And so I think that people who, I think that never comes without some pushback. I fully expected the pushback. Leaders have to be willing to take a bad news cycle in order to do the right thing, and no good deed goes unpunished in a lot of cases. And I think you guys can attest to the fact that making change is hard, and there are going to be people that don't like it. And while you try to minimize the amount of people that don't like it, you can't. I never take my eye off the goal, and sometimes that is changing the team that's around me.
It sounds like you stand by those decisions.
Absolutely. I do. If we go deep dive, there's one person who was a digital director for the state party. I wish I would have kept her on. I remember her name. I don't want to call out her name, but there was one employee that I wish I would have. To this day, I wish I would have. When I called her, I felt like, man, I really would like to probably keep her, but we didn't have the funds to continue to pay for 12 employees at the time. I could have kept that one extra one, and I wish I would have kept that digital director on at the same. But that's the only one that I wish I would have did differently.
Okay, so this next section is about, we have it written as under the ARCH priorities, but they could be ARCH City Defenders in Action, People's Plan,
Tomato.
Movement, just us, whatever sector you call us behind closed doors. Us and our people, our bases, our memberships. So first, I'll keep the order. Okay, first, but I want to ask the last question. But first, let's talk about the workhouse.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that building on Hall Street?
I do.
It's still
It's
on
still
Hall
there.
Street.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Mhm.
It is empty,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still there. And a new administration threatens the idea that it could stay empty and keep moving toward full closure. So, what is under your leadership? Are you committed to the permanent closure of the workhouse and to pursuing the recommendations of the community re-envisioning report? Have you read it? Have you looked at it?
It's been a while. No, I'll be honest. It's been a while. Yeah, I thought we took care of that some years ago.
Emptied it.
Many of, you all know that I was supportive of close the workhouse and really changed the minds of a lot of Democrats and especially people on the Democratic committee at the time to help us see a savings in our city budget by closing the workhouse and doing the right thing with humanity. So I followed community people what was the right thing to do before, and I don't see why I would change now.
Unplanned follow up on that. I think one of the reasons this is coming up now is predictably the other city in the other jail, St. Louis City Justice Center, has had just a slew of problems in years.
Yeah,
and a lot we could say about that.
We can go a whole episode about that.
Yeah, right. I won't enumerate all of them, but the fact that they're having all of those problems has caused some people to say, "Oh, well, we should then put people back in the workhouse."
But Blake, remember this was when we met maybe like 5 years ago about this. Close the workhouse to me was never, and the original plan was never just about the buildings.
That's right.
It was about the process of people getting incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think while a lot of, and this is where the educator and the mayor should be, like, while a lot of folks are focused on locks and buildings, they're not, again, re-engaged about the process of why people end up in those spaces. So I would want me as mayor, I would be bring the focus back on the process and focus on things we can do differently in the civil courts building, things we can do differently in city government to make sure that we're not filling up those buildings anymore. Because as we've known statistically before, we don't have to. We do have enough space and enough funds to have a humane, I don't want to use the word humane, to have a process that is reducing the amount of people that are incarcerated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It would be nice if it were humane. That's been okay. I'll take the next couple because I know you wanna take.
Yeah, they're related.
So we talked a lot around housing through the lens of vacancy, particularly, but I want to ask about it through a couple other lenses.
Before you move on that, I think the point you said, I would agree it would be nice if we're humane.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to note that what we have currently is humane.
Yeah.
So
we picked that up.
It's our moral responsibility that it's humane.
Yeah.
And so that should be a given. But I think that it should be humane, and we should continue to be focusing on how do we reduce the amount of folks that are going through the process.
Thank you.
There you go.
So, we all know we have a problem with housing. We have a problem with affordable housing, both from an ownership lens and from a renting lens. And many of the people that we work with are renters that are trying to stay in decent and stable and affordable housing in St. Louis. And many renters are rent burdened, meaning they're paying, a larger portion of their income than they should have to on housing. And a lot of the housing that is being built in St. Louis is unaffordable. As we've talked about, the markets look very different in different places, and there are certain places where, new buildings going up every day, but working class people aren't able to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your plan? You've talked a little bit about what to do with vacancy in particular. So, some of this might connect to your plan around vacancy. I don't know how much of that you're thinking about renting versus ownership, but we'd love to hear more about your plan to increase access to affordable housing for renters, and also how you would support some of the nascent efforts in St. Louis, like Right to Counsel, like the Impacted Tenant Fund, that are designed to support renters and particularly working class renters.
So this is renters and tenants' bill of rights and tenants' rights are very personal to me because I'm one of those nomad St. Louisans. Between my parents got divorced when I was 9 years old, in between age 9 to age 25, I moved 17 times. 17 times, even in a different city. We moved to Columbia, Missouri. We moved every year in Columbia, Missouri, looking for. And when I look back on it, it wasn't that we were just probably looking for a better place. Sometimes there were probably some things our mom had with the landlord or something that I didn't know about as a kid. So that and that's typical in St. Louis. Like, and it affects everything. It affects our school district. It affects delivery of services and for all of our departments. It affects a lot. So having more stable housing for folks and that is affordable and meets health codes and is humane is very, when you're knocking doors, you see some inhumane spaces that people are living in that I can't change as recorder deeds that actually can change immediately as mayor. So it's very important to me. It's personal to me. So I'd be very supportive of everything that goes along with a tenant bill of rights.
What about specifically right to counsel in the city? Legislation now that would provide renters facing eviction with attorneys. It is not fully funded. There's not enough attorneys to actually provide to everybody facing eviction.
My understanding, there was the other. I would fund it. Okay, we need to. I don't know what the total bill. You guys, I'm sure you have the number. What the total bill on that is? Was it $5 million? I
think it was
year
initially calculated at $5 million.
Yes.
Yeah, but it got.
Yeah.
I think the form allocation got right.
I think $5 million.
And funded by ARPA, to be clear. Like
that's what I was gonna say.
Plan.
So I was gonna mention that. Like, I think that under ARPA funds are gonna go away. They're on their way out. So you have to find some space in general revenue to put that money. I think $5 million is a lot to put to commit to. I would commit to millions of dollars, but some kind $5 million. I don't want to be a lying politician and say that I would commit to $5 million, but somewhere millions of dollars where we're getting better than. Now I want to be the rate is important too. We're getting better than public defender rate attorneys as well. Is very important to me as well that we're able to pay a rate that isn't so low that we're not that those clients are not a priority for some attorneys. But absolutely would commit to putting millions
and just to
of
bring
funding.
it into like focus, especially the impacted tenants fund. There was a fire in Baden last week, or maybe it's almost been 2 weeks ago. One of the Baden apartment complex off Hall's Ferry, and one of the buildings was basically completely shut down. And so the impacted tenant fund really is about creating immediate safety structure.
Absolutely.
For that, because right now what we just have is if there's a fire, or last year we're running up on the 1 year of the hard rain that fell in
Remember
Heritage
that
House.
Heritage House? I was about to say that. That's what comes to mind for me.
The entire elderly building was displaced. We're almost 3 years out, 2.5 years out from the floods that decimated some apartment complexes in the city. And so this impacted tenant fund is about creating a revolving door fund and infrastructure to respond to the reality that folks they're not sitting on thousands of dollars to go pay another deposit and application fees. And also there's just not housing stock for them to go to, and they cannot afford the buildings that are being built in Soulard.
And they can't wait to go through Section 8 and other things like that. So when you put it that way, it definitely could be more. Definitely more than the couple millions that I'm talking about. But I think that I would hate to say a number now and then not be able to deliver later. Yeah.
We're down to our last 5 minutes and definitely want to get these last two subjects. So homelessness, persistent problem in the city of St. Louis. By some measures, growing problem in the city of St. Louis. And, a lot of finger pointing happens around the lack of shelter, around the lack of services. Persistently, it's not robustly funded in the city budget. What would you do to address homelessness? And let me ask a two-parter. What would you do to address homelessness? Specifically, do you support an unhoused Bill of Rights to make it harder to remove people from encampments if there's not safe shelter?
Yes, I'd absolutely support the unhoused Bill of Rights. And I think that Alderwoman Sonnier had a lot of courage being a new alderman, proposing the ordinance and seeing it through and seeing and working it through a process that sometimes can be very difficult on younger, new elected officials. So yes, the other thing is, I think it's important to have compassion with this issue. And when it comes to unhoused Bill of Rights, some folks don't have compassion for encampments. And I do notice two things with encampments, that there are people that are there to live, and sometimes there are people that are there to sell to people that live there. And a lot of times, activists are not there to worry about the people that are there to sell, and police seem to not be there to worry about the people that are there to live. And that's where leadership has to step in, especially from our side. If I'm a government leader side, is our police or our government workers didn't seem to have enough compassion over the past 4 years to protect those who are there to live and weed out those who are there to sell. They're treating everybody like a criminal when everyone isn't. So, an unhoused Bill of Rights is necessary so that some of those government workers have something on paper to be enforced, especially if we have some kind of state takeover. We don't have much more control over our police department. We've got to have something there in place to say, this is what we believe, and this is how our city is going to react to people who are trying to live in our city. When it comes to funding, once again, we have a surplus, and we have a issue that of homelessness that everybody understands is a big issue, that everybody agrees there has to be funding devoted to. That, quite frankly, it's a growing issue in every city across the country. So we should definitely devote more funding within our city budget. We should be demanding more and advocating for more funding from the state and federal government. And what I want to see, though, too, is that we're not just depending on nonprofit partners to deliver that funding. There are some things we can do in-house. Quiet as it's kept, I did homeless outreach during the snowstorm, just to learn more. And the first thing I thought of when I was doing homeless outreach, like, volunteers should not be should not be the only ones doing this work. Like, depending on volunteers to talk to our unhoused citizens about the systems and the options that they have is something that a full-time person from city government can be doing, and not us depending on the goodwill of the organizations that we in part fund. So there's absolutely enough money to go around to help with human services and homeless services, and something I would like to see more done, not from a third party contract. The last thing I'm saying, I know this is a big issue, is that I would want to. This is something that's not been introduced before, and I think that I've seen on the ground, is that there's not enough house options for unhoused people who are on substances and who want to continue to be on substances. Sometimes one of the biggest barriers for unhoused people to find a space is that they have so much trauma that they're medicating that they're not willing to go off the substance, and they can't get access to a space to live while still being on that substance. And that becomes a barrier. And there are some spaces like that, but they're not enough. And I would want to focus some funding on making sure we have more of those spaces, because that becomes a repeating thing where folks they're choosing to stay on the substance rather than choose some of the options that we have for them, even when they're not full.
Thank you.
So our last question, our last official question, is about reparations. So the city appointed a reparations commission that went through
I'm sure you're familiar with it.
A rigorous 18-month community engagement process, and in the fall released the final report with recommendations. Question number one: have you read the report?
I have. I actually have.
I'm happy to hear that. And do you have any plans around the report's recommendations?
I think reparations is the issue of our time as Black people, and I've been happy to see see this issue come to the forefront. I do have some plans around reparations, and I word my solutions a little differently than what it was in the report, but they're similar. So I see there are 3 ways to push out reparations, which are community reparations, opportunity reparations, and then cash payments. I can't remember the exact wording that was in the report they're similar, but they one was like legislative reparations, so like policy reparations. Yeah, policy. I more look at there are certain policies that are community, some are I would intertwine them a little bit. I think promoting the repair of African American people across this country, which we see huge economic and lifestyle gaps. I mean, the city of St. Louis is a clear example of the majority African American area in the city is different than the majority white area in the city, politically, policy, housing, economically. So it's clear. So even white voters know that there's a need and there's a difference. I see us being more able to pass community reparations and being able to give funding needed and a lot of solutions that are around community reparations and opportunity reparations around a lot of funding that can be centered towards granting opportunities to African Americans. I believe in cash payments, but it sounds like it might be clear. I don't know if the bill actually passed or if there's a preemptive bill at the state government to keep us from doing cash payments. Mm-hmm. I think the cash payments are also really expensive for the city government itself to fund. I don't think a small amount. I think in the report it was something like $500 would be a start out amount. I think that the cash payments would be more appropriate for a state or a federal government, but that we should be moving immediately on community and opportunity reparations within our city government. And I would love to be a part of that. I mean, it'd be the joy of my career to be a part of something like that.
Okay.
Well, there's a million things we could talk about. We've talked about a lot of them today. But as we close, anything we did not ask you about or just closing thoughts that you want to share with our listeners?
Closing thought I want to share with your listeners. I was going to share some with y'all. I'll say first.
Anyone who is listening.
Lord willing, I win this race and I get to become mayor. But even if I would just love to have a conversation with you guys, non-political. Like just y'all have amazing stories, and I think it'd be interesting for folks to hear what we've seen and done from these different perspectives for the past 10 years.
You want to come back for a non-election?
I would love to. If I'm good enough.
The closing thought is back to under the yard.
I'm trying to come back to season 7.
I would love to. But for your listeners, you can vote for more than one candidate in the race. This race is not about pitting against each other. It's about information that you all are putting out. And because of approval voting in the city, you can vote for the plans and the candidates of the policies that you approve of. And then the general election, it's a head-to-head race. So I'd want your listeners to know that hopefully, if I'm not your first option, I can be your second guy. I can be your second option. And if you agree with me and approve of my policies, that I can be a part of your ballot.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for taking the time and being the first official season 6. Under the Arch.
I'm honored. Love it.
We appreciate it and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was episode 1. And in this series, we have invited the other 3 candidates. So Andrew Jones, Alderwoman Kara Spencer, and Mayor Tashara Jones to join us for episodes just like this, where we ask questions about their platform, their record, issues that matter to our organizations and the communities we serve, and to talk about their vision for the city. And so we hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed it.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
We asked a lot of questions,
learned some things. And just want to close out by thanking our team as always. Our production team that is not here on our staffs: Johnny Gabbard, Z Gorley, Carissa Anderson.
New to the team, Brittany Jansen.
And
our temporary squad. Season starters, Church Production Studios.
Yes.
For giving us space and cameras. Hope you like what you see. And just to run down some election stuff, because we don't just want you to listen to this and not vote. The point of this is to vote. And we spending a little money to bring you this. So we need you to listen to it and vote. The election is on March 4th, 2025. That's a Tuesday. And polls will open at 6 a.m. They will close at 7 p.m. Again, like the candidate said, the primary, because of Prop D that we passed some years ago, you can approve as many candidates as you like. You can approve all 4, you can approve 3, you can approve 2, you can approve 1. But approve somebody, and the top 2 vote getters will go on into a runoff, and that election is April 8th. Again, polls will open at 6 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. And whoever gets the most votes after 7 p.m. on April the 8th will be the mayor of the city of St. Louis until 2029. This is an important election. These issues are important. They matter to us. So it's time for us to get involved. Voter turnout in the city of St. Louis from the November presidential to the following municipal election drops off about 40%. That means about 40,000 people will decide the next mayor of all the eligible voters in the city. So we want to get that number up, and we want you to go informed. So tune into this episode, share it with your people, stick around. You've been listening to season 6 of Under the Arch. We'll talk to you soon.
We have come so far from home. We have come so far to go. To go.